Welcome to today's news on TV9. I'm Ada Show. In today's local news, the bodies of 2 New Zealand soldiers killed in Afghanistan were due to land at Christchurch International Airport last night. Lance Corporals Prelee Dura and Rory Malone were killed when they went to the aid of ambushed Afghan police in Bamiyan province. The men's bodies were farewelled with a haka ceremony at Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan this Monday. Auckland Council has thrown its supports behind a proposed legislation aimed at reducing the harm caused by poker machines. But Mayor Len Brown doesn't want the responsibility of handling the distribution of funding from the gaming industry. Chrissy Jar reports.
Maori Party MP Te Ururoa Flavel's bill to reduce the harm of pokie machines passed its first reading in Parliament back in June, and now after a month's consultation across the city, the Auckland Council has made a submission backing the bill's plans to drive down the number of gambling venues in the community. Mayor Len Brown says the thrust of the legislation is worthy of support.
What we've been trying to do for a long time really is get a review of the gambling legislation in terms of Class 4s and what we can do to control them. And secondly, I think we're reflecting back to Parliament the fact that if Parliament makes a change, that our preference is to maintain the existing trusts and or rationalise some of them.
But Brown has rejected Flavel's proposal to put funding distribution in the hands of local body politicians, saying the council's preference is for gaming trusts to maintain that responsibility. He says the council has enough to concentrate on as it is.
Something like $200 million per annum in Auckland, and just way too much potential to be accused rightly or wrongly of sort of directing funds towards favourite hobby horses and projects.
Flavel's private members' bill is aiming to strip power from the gaming trusts, which dominate the $850 million pokie industry in pubs and clubs. It would put power to distribute the $300 million available to community groups in the hands of local authorities, wiping out the current funding bodies. Christy Zhao, 9 News.
An education institute gets a boost from a leading IT name. Amy Sheen reports.
Unitec will get New Zealand's first delivery centre, teaming up with IBM to equip graduates with industry-based placements.
We'll have students who are working on projects on an earn-as-you-learn program that, should they successfully complete, will give them guaranteed employment at IBM.
Based at the Mount Albert campus, the multi-million-dollar investment will enable annual scholarships, internship and graduate hire programs.
And we'll have IBM staff teaching on our computing, our business, our communication studies degrees, and bringing that global perspective of one of the world's most respected international brands right here into Unitec.
IBM and Unitec will demonstrate that the February 2013 opening allows tertiary students a direct gateway and productivity growth into their professional field.
This is a great opportunity for IBM New Zealand, and it really demonstrates how close a collaboration between the education sector and industry can deliver real benefits to the prosperity of New Zealand.
IBM currently has 50 delivery centres across 5 continents. Amy Chen, 9 News.
The Household Labour Force survey shows that unemployment rates for the June quarter rose to 6.8%, the highest it's been since June 2010. Chrissy Jar reports.
The country's economic outlook took a turn for the worse as the unemployment rate increased 0.1 percentage points to 6.8%, the highest it's been since June 2010. Most economists had predicted a drop to 6.5%, but the pool of jobs shrank for the first time in almost 2 years, resulting in a 1.1% rise in the number of unemployed people. Prime Minister John Key, though, says he's comfortable with the number.
Look, it's a very small technical rise. I'm not overly concerned, but we were hoping that the number would fall slightly. From what we can see, employment is rising in all parts of the country ex-Christchurch, so the Christchurch numbers are dragging it down a little bit.
The Prime Minister signalled this week that the onus is on the central bank and private investors to stimulate economic growth, but he says the government knows it's important to allow businesses the opportunity to grow and create jobs.
Obviously we'd like to see the economy go faster and we're working very hard to achieve that.
The unemployment figures have been highly volatile in the past couple of years, rising to almost 7% in late 2009 after the global financial crisis, and bouncing between 6 and 7% since then. There were 5,000 fewer men in employment in the June quarter this year, but 3,000 more women were employed. The overall employment rate fell to 63.8%. Christy Zhao, 9 News.
How safe is your car? AA and NZTA award Safe Pick status for used cars. Amy Chen reports.
The safest used vehicles had to achieve the maximum 5-star protection rating and be classified to cause less serious injuries to road users. New Zealand Transport Agency Chief Executive Jeff Dangerfield comments on the specific safety measures. Better designs such as airbags, advanced seatbelt systems and high-strength steel construction help reduce the risk of death or serious injury in the event of a crash. As newer models come out with advanced technology, vehicles become safer. What's interesting from the research is that some of the most affordable used cars are in fact the safest as well.
Despite the Audi 2001 to 2008 models being awarded, we took the news to their 2011 models just to see how effective and safe they are.
Of Continental Car Services Mark Bycroft makes the point that Audis are made for the Autobahn, so in New Zealand it surpasses safety measures.
They're all 5-star rating, all the new vehicles, but when you say 5-star rating, it's not just them meeting a safety measure, they're exceeding that safety measure. So certainly when you're looking in Europe and you're looking at the open road driving speed being unlimited, they're building a car that will be safe in those conditions. So when you bring it back to a country with a 100k an hour speed limit, your margin of safety is just tripled.
Out of the 29 awarded models of cars, other safe pick affordable examples include Volvo S40 97 to 2004 from $5,000, Honda Accord 2003 to 2007 from $15,000, and the Toyota Orion 2006 to 2010 from $24,000. Amy Chen, 9 News.
Pacific Islanders overseas in the country have been found to become the targets of visa scams, with many of them having to work below the minimum wage for a promise of residency. Chrissy Jai reports.
It's been reported that hundreds of Pacific Island overstayers have been promised visas to stay in New Zealand in exchange for cash payments. The overstayers, many of them Tongans, were made to work in jobs that paid under the minimum wage. Immigration expert David Cooper says visa scams have been going on for many years.
Well, if a person is illegal in the country, what they want to do is obviously they need to be able to support themselves economically, so they're prepared to do whatever work comes along at whatever cost that may be, and because they know they're in the country illegally, they're not too concerned with employment laws, and employers take advantage of that.
An annual immigration quota system started in 2002, the Pacific Access category was meant to allow 250 Tongans to migrate to New Zealand each year, but few in the community have actually been able to gain residence through the scheme. Cooper says the reasons are twofold.
One major issue is that there obviously has been a downturn in the economy and the number of jobs that are available, particularly for employers recruiting somebody they haven't met before, has become much more smaller. And the second reason would be is that, there are, as has been reported, people unlawfully in the community taking some of those jobs.
Cooper says the Tongans' offer of reward to fight visa scams is a novel approach, but how effective it is remains to be seen. He says even though immigration authorities have limited resources, they would certainly take every step they can to take down any swindlers. Christy Zhao, 9 News.
Efforts on reducing child mortality and maternal mortality have been quite effective. One of the many ways is to help to invest the kind of equipment that's simple, cheap to operate and maintain. Keisha reports.
Child mortality and maternal mortality are reducing in the developing countries, but not eliminated. Some of the main drivers of mortality remains to be unsafe water, poor sanitation practice, and not utilising health institutions like clinics and hospitals.
Now, if we could improve the attendance at good health clinics or at hospitals, and then those hospitals had good services and could support children that are low birth rates, such as incubators, then that would help us further reduce child mortality. So incubators definitely have a place in the overall scheme of reducing child deaths.
A British study has found that expensive medical equipment can have adverse effect in developing countries because the machine is too expensive to run and maintain properly.
Well, yes, an incubator is quite an expensive piece of equipment, and it needs the appropriate skills to be able to use it properly. So it is a problem that health clinics in some of the villages can't afford this type of equipment, and if there were a cheaper, effective solution that's been proven, then that would be a great advantage to the health of babies.
The incubator's humidity system requires sterile water, but that's often replaced with inexpensive tap water full of bacteria, and over time dirt and slime in the water clogs the incubator's valves, rendering the machine useless.
That's very important. It's that local training, building the capacity of the local people to take care of their own equipment.
New Zealand medical innovator Sir Ray Avery has been working on a simple incubator that will cost just $1,500. And it will run for 10 years without servicing and sterilizes its own water in a built-in filter. His incubators will be field tested in the Pacific and Africa later this year. Kay Chow, 9 News.
Now we have our TV9 host from Asia Focus, Julie Nixon, to comment on school league tables are inevitable.
The introduction of league tables for schools is inevitable because invariably parents are looking for information about schools so that they can make an informed decision about the school that they're going to send their children to. Universities have had league tables for years, and students have made decisions about which university they go to on the basis of those league tables. New Zealand universities, in fact, on the international tables have been dropping down the rankings recently, and that's created a big discussion around whether or not we should have one or two elite universities where we put all our eggs into one basket, so to speak, put the funding into those universities, raise the level of those universities so that one or two New Zealand universities goes up the international tables to a point where we can compete with the best university in countries like Denmark and Singapore, whose universities tend to be a bit higher than ours. So the situation with the schools is that the Prime Minister has come out and said that he agrees that one school can be compared with another as long as it's of the same socio-economic group, so a decile 1 versus a decile 1. Parents are going to demand that information, that statistics data that will be available. Now, whether or not there are any official league tables, that's not going to make any difference. There's always going to be media, whether it's magazine, newspapers or even TV channels out there who are going to conduct their own surveys, use the information that is in the public domain and draw their own conclusions. We live in a world that is, well, it's driven by the internet in some ways. People have access to information in this internet world, and parents feel that they have the right to this information, so therefore they're going to draw their own conclusions from the information that's going to be posted on the government website. That's just the way it is. That's the world that we live in.